Yo, what's up guys? I'm Nuo, and today I'm going to be showing you how to complete the Garden of Salvation raid with only 3 people. This 3-man honestly might be my favorite 3-man raid that Destiny has to offer at the moment. It's extremely fast-paced, doesn't require any glitches, and overall tests your ability in multiple aspects of the game. This guide will show you both how to complete the raid and explain strategies used if you're attempting a trio flawless. So without further ado, let's get started. The first encounter in Trio Garden really kicks off the raid in a fast way. There are 2 main strategies for this encounter. There's a sacrifice strategy, which utilizes reses to pick up more voltaic overflows, and then there's the flawless strategy, which is a step up in difficulty. I'll start off by explaining what loadouts to use, certain mechanics to be aware of, and then branch off into discussing the 2 separate strategies. In general, there really is no recommended class composition for this raid, but I would recommend at least one Warlock, because you can use Well of Radiance on boss, and it also makes the first encounter a little bit easier. Okay, on the screen now you should see an infographic with the recommended loadouts for each class. Generally, an Eager's Edge Sword, Trinity Ghoul, and a Sniper Rifle will get you through this encounter with ease. Trinity Ghoul is insanely good at clearing adds out, your Sniper will take out the Cyclops, and your Eager Edge Sword will help you with movement as well as killing the Overload champions. The only adaptation we had to make this season is that we had our lead person run double primary to stun the Overload champion. There aren't many important mods, aside from, obviously, Overload, for this encounter, so use whatever suits you best. Movement exotics are great here, like Stompies and Transversives, or burst damage exotics like Curus and Nighthawk, as they help burst on champs and Angelics. That's really all I have for loadout. Next, we'll move on to the tether spots. You might be asking, what do you mean tether spots? Well, you see, in a trio, it's super important to know where to stand in order to complete each tether to open the door. It saves a lot of time, and because this encounter is very time-based, if you're unsure where to stand, it can cause a couple wipes. Okay, so now that you know where to stand for each tether, and what loadout to use, let's talk strategy. Like I mentioned earlier, there are 2 strategies for this encounter. The easier strategy that requires deaths, and the more difficult flawless strategy. If you would like to do the flawless strategy, skip to the timestamp on screen. The sacrifice strategy is not terribly difficult, but it might take a few tries. In short, you'll be collecting 2 overflows, or spits, in the first 2 rooms, which buys enough time to get the door open. To start, assign each player a role. Person A is tasked with killing 2 Overload champions by themselves, so make sure they have the proper mods to stun them. And player C needs to be able to transition across the gap in second room very quickly, so make sure they have either Dawnblade or an Eager Edge Sword on. To start, Person A will drop down into the second room and begin to ad clear. Person C should snipe the Cyclops and any ads that spawn behind it. Person B will grab the first spit, and then follow Person A into room 2 and clear ads and kill the Angelic. At this point, Person C should be grabbing the second spit in the first room, and then they should Dawnblade or Eager Edge across the gap to get to the second door. After opening the second door, the third room should be open. Player A will again go forward, and B and C will hang back. player C will pick up the first spit, which should kill them because they had the overflow timer from the first room. They will be rezzed by person B. Now, person B will go forward, and because C no longer has a timer, they can stay back and pick up the next spawn. When player C gets rezzed, they no longer have a debuff, so they can hang back. Person B will go forward and help person A clear the ads in the overload champion. Eventually, they'll kill the angelic too. Once player C grabs the second spit in the second room, they'll come forward and help open the door. When the door opens, player A will hang back as they're the only one without a debuff timer at this point, and they will grab the first spit. Players B and C will go forward and kill the ads in the overload to spawn the angelic. When person A grabs the spit, they will come forward and unlock the door. In this room, instead of grabbing 2 spits, we're only going to grab 1, as it's actually much easier if you only grab 1 here. When all 3 players are up top, make sure you get that tether as quick as possible, and when it's complete, simply wait for your timers to go down, and after a minute or so, the door will automatically unlock itself. At this point, you can utilize your remaining reses to pick up the final 3 spits in the Cyclops field. Don't worry about dying, as long as one person is alive, you'll beat the encounter. And that's it. It shouldn't be terribly difficult. I think the hardest part will be getting the tethers done quickly, so make sure you understand where to stand. Now, I'm going to go over the flawless strategy. If you don't care for that, simply skip to the timestamp on the screen for the second encounter. The flawless strategy is definitely more challenging than the sacrifice strategy, but with practice, you'll get it down pretty consistently. Fortunately, because it's the first encounter, if you are going for flawless, it's not the end of the world to wipe here a few times. To start off, assign roles. You'll have a leader, a chaser, and a zoomer. These are all names I've just made up myself. While not necessary, most teams will use a Titan as a lead and a Warlock as the zoomer. In our run here, Beat was the lead, Fakes was the chaser, and I was the zoomer. To start, your lead will kill the goblins on the right after opening the door. Then they will use the Death from Above melee into a Thunder Crash and land on the champion that spawns in the bottom left. When it dies, they'll move forward and take out the goblins near the second door. The chaser should be following the lead after killing the Cyclops and dropping down to the bottom left. They should kill the ads in the bottom left and then move forward and kill the ads that the lead skipped after killing the champion. Meanwhile, the zoomer will just simply grab the first spit and either Dawnblade or skate across the gap to catch up to the lead and the chaser. All 3 players should be ready to tether as soon as the angelic dies. When it does so, shoot the tether box and get the door open. If you're too slow, you'll see that the angelic has done another spit here, in which case you'll wipe. This is going to take a few practice runs to make sure you're killing ads quick enough, and killing the angelic quick enough, and getting the door open quick enough. But eventually, you'll get through the room. For the next room, your chaser will stay back while your lead and zoomer head forward. This is because you need to alternate who's staying back to pick up the buff. Again, clear the ads as fast as possible, kill the overload, and then kill the angelic, and get that door open as soon as possible. For the final room, the lead will stay back as they are the only one without a debuff at this point. Meanwhile, the zoomer and the chaser will kill the Cyclops and then head forward, killing the ads, the overload, and eventually the angelic. Once it's dead, everyone should position themselves for the first tether and get that done. Just like the non-flawless strategy, you only need to do 1 tether, because after a minute or so, the door should open on its own. Because you're waiting for those doors to open, your timer should be going down. When it does open, your zoomer should not have a debuff, and your chaser's debuff timer should be getting very low. This way, the zoomer can grab the first spit, and the chaser, once their timer is gone to 0, can grab the second spit. For the final spit, here's where it gets tricky. All 3 players will have the debuff here, so you need to somehow pick up the last debuff without dying. To do this, you can either Alt F4 as you pick it up, or get booted from the instance. Both methods work if done properly, so it's up for you to decide which one you want to do. If you elect to do the Alt F4 strategy, whoever is going to Alt F4 should jump above the spit, and as soon as they reach the apex of their jump and begin to descend, they should hit Alt F4. If you elect to do the kick strategy, the person going to pick up the buff should count down from 3, 2, 1, and say kick moments before sliding into the buff. The delay is to account for any reaction time and ping. And the reason you slide is because you're likely going to be wanting to do this on a Titan with Antaeus Words, as Antaeus Words will delay the death until your slide is finished, which gives you just a little bit extra leeway when sliding into the overflow. If you successfully get that Deathless grab, you've beat the encounter and you're ready to move on to the second encounter. pat yourself on the back, because that was probably the hardest part of this trio flawless. The second encounter, or the relays encounter, is a little bit intimidating at first, I'll admit, but with a proper plan and the proper weapons, you'll get through it. First, assign players roles again. This will be similar to the first encounter, but it's not quite the same. You'll have a lead, a chaser, and a defender. Once these roles are assigned, you can start working on your loadouts. Your leader should be using Arbalest to deal with the anti-barrier champions, and it also helps to have an eager-edged sword so you can move quickly between locations. But this isn't necessary. I recommend if you're a warlock to use Dawnblade, Thundercrash on Titan, and Revenant if you're a hunter. I'd also recommend having Witherhorde on standby, as well as a machine gun to swap once you've opened all the portals. I'll get to that in a minute. Your chaser will be your fastest person. They should be using an eager-edged sword, Witherhorde, and a primary of their choice. Or alternatively, Forbearance, the new raid GL, with chain reaction, or some other wave frame. Similar to the leader, because they need to go fast, Dawnblade, Missile, and Revenant are very solid here. Similar to the leader, you can switch off the sword to a machine gun once all the portals are up. Finally, your defender doesn't necessarily need to worry about speed, as they will always be using the portals to change locations. They can opt for a good defending loadout of Witherhorde, machine gun, I recommend 21% Delirium if you have it unlocked, as this is a sunset raid, and a primary of choice. In terms of classes, I recommend this person either be a Voidwalker, a Shadebinder, a Revenant, or a Sunspot Titan. Now that everyone's figured out what they want to do, let's talk strategy. I'm going to number the areas 1, 2, 3, and 4 going clockwise from the start. So the start is 1, if you go left that's 2, if you go left from 2 that's 3, left from 3 is 4, left from 4 is back to 1. To start, the lead will start the encounter by running left. The chaser and the defender will kill the angelic and get the first tether done. The chaser will now chase the leader down to relay 2. Once the leader has killed all the barrier champions and the angelic is killed, the chaser and the leader can tether here. The lead then should immediately head to 3. Meanwhile, the defender should actually be leaving 1 ad alive on relay 1. And you can do this by shooting its head off so it de-aggroes the relay and it just chases you. Once the chaser and the leader have tethered on number 2, you can kill that ad and it should say the undergrowth defenses subside. What this basically does is it delays the next wave of ads spawning until the lead and the chaser are ready. Eventually, the left portal will open up because they've got the tether on 2, and then you can go to 2 and get the tether with the chaser. When the tether is done, the chaser will chase the lead down to 3 and kill the angelic and the barrier champs with them. In the meantime, the defender will now be using the portal between 1 and 2 to defend both those relays. That's why it's important to have a good build like Witherhorde and a machine gun. The lead and the chase will eventually tether at 3, and the lead will immediately leave for 4. Once they tether, the portal between 2 and 3 will be opened, the defenses will subside, and the chaser will again tether at 2 with the defender. Once the defenses reappear, the defender will defend 1 and 2 again for this wave, while the chaser clears out 3 as fast as possible. Once all enemies are dead on 3, the chaser will now head down to 4. This is where Dawnblade and or the Eager-Edged Sword for the chaser comes into play, because you have to get this done really quickly. You have to be able to get from 3 to 4 as fast as you can. Once the lead and the chaser tether on 4, the chaser can head back to 3 to defend it. The portal between 1 and 4 should now be open, and the defender can come to 4 and tether with the lead. Now, all 3 players are enlightened, and they're ready to defend for the next phase of this encounter. Your defender should now be defending plates 1 and 2, your chaser should be defending plate 3, and your lead should be defending plate 4. The first wave of ads should be simple. There should be no angelics here. You should have enemies on all 4 plates, so your defender needs to be killing the enemies on 1 and 2, your chaser on 3, and your lead on 4. Once all the enemies are dead, tether on any relay you want, and refresh the buff before the next wave. This wave should have angelics. In general, when an angelic spawns, you will have 1 person defend that side by themselves. The other 2 people will each defend the relay adjacent to the angelics, and they will also share the relay opposite side the angelics. So, I'm going to put it on the screen now, but if the angelics are on 1, 3 is shared. On 2, 4 is shares. You get it. Just look at the images if you're confused. The defender is defending 1 and 2, the chaser is defending 3, and the lead is defending 4. Let's say there's angelics on 2. The defender now has to defend 2. Because there's angelics, they're no longer responsible for 1. So that means it's the responsibility of whoever is closest to 1 to cover 1. So in this case, it's the lead, who is normally on 4. And because angelics are on 1, the shared plate is on 4, so it makes sense for the lead to go over to 1. The lead will cover 1, the chaser will cover 3, and both of them will cover 4 together, while the angelics are killed by the defender. Sounds confusing, but you'll figure it out as you go along, and if you have to switch up roles mid-encounter, it's okay. I've tried to give a strategy to follow, but if needed, you can always switch it up. Eventually, you'll kill all 4 waves of angelics, the gate in the middle will drop down, and you can head to the middle to slay out. Once everything dies, tether and clear another wave. Then when that wave dies, you want to tether another 2 to 3 times. This extends the buff timer as long as possible. Eventually the wave will spawn, you can kill everything, and then you are done the encounter. If your enlighten runs out, you can just quickly retether as long as all the angelics are dead. Whew, that was much more exhilarating than a 6-man. You can see why people love this low man. Now, it's time to move on to Harpy. The Consecrated Mind, or as most people call it, just Harpy, is one of the cooler boss fights in my opinion. The trio doesn't let down either, and aside from bugs related to motes, it's quite fun. The roles you assign people on your team don't really matter here too much, but I'd recommend having someone on either Dawnblade or an Eager-Edged Swords who can avoid sacks on the first deposit. On the screen now, you'll see the loadouts I recommend. With the nerf to Bubble, I can't justify it over Thunder Crush anymore, especially when high energy fire exists. Nova Bomb now makes the boss go crazy apparently, but if you have multiple Warlocks, you can still try it out. You should still at least have one Warlock on Dawnblade. Tether will block shots of line of sight on the boss, so Nighthawk is the play. Or you can do Mask of Bacchus if you're the one on double slugs. I'll explain that in a second. Izanagi plus explosive light rockets is by far the best choice here. But if you do want to debuff, you can have your third person on double slugs. This would either be a person on Transversive Steps or a person on Mask of Bacchus, and they will use double slugs and tractor cannon. But if you aren't comfortable on the double slugs, you can always just do either triple Izanagi rocket, or you can do Divinity plus 2 Izanagi rockets. But I wouldn't use Galahorn and Wolfpack rounds because they tend to hit immune on Heartbeat for some reason. So I would try to stay away from that. One person on your team should have special finisher, preferably if you have a Dawnblade. You know, your Dawnblade could be on special finisher, or if someone else can just, make 1 or 2 finishers and then still get their super back. Everyone should be on the proper finders and scavengers, as well as any resists they feel necessary. And then everyone should have on high energy fire, and the people popping their supers during the damage phase should have on radiant light. So you get that 20% damage buff, and that way you don't need a bubble. I think the best loadout here is a sniper, a void fusion rifle like Null Composure, and a rocket or a sword. You can swap to damage weapons before damage, like Izanagi, as long as you have special finishers up. I ran an SMG on this run, and as you can see, I was pretty slow killing the Minotaurs, and it almost wiped us, so I would try to stay away from that, and I would instead use double special. Once you've got that all sorted out, you're ready to learn the strategy for the fight. To start, one person will be the fast person, with either a sword or a Dawnblade. This person will get the first 10 motes, and they will also get the third set of eyes. Another person will get the first set of eyes and the second set of motes, and the last person will get the second set of eyes and the third set of motes. You can basically treat these roles just like a 6-man garden, except everyone should be able to solo their eyes. So either with your sniper or even a fusion rifle works. Big difference between a 6-man and a trio is you need to be on top of ad clear. Killing ads is what spawns the Minotaurs, so you need to make sure they die as quick as they can. This also includes supplicants, so when you bank and you spawn a bunch of supplicants, it's going to delay the Minotaur spawns unless you can snipe them down lane. Other than that, it's basically just making sure to go quickly and not miss any motes. If a mote gets stuck in the ground, you can try throwing a grenade at it, and sometimes it gets it out of the ground. But just make sure you always have a multiple of 5 when you're picking up your motes. Repeat this 2 times, and the boss should die. Though, if your damage is really subpar, you might need to go for a 3-phase, which is perfectly okay. but I would try to aim for the 2-phase. When Heartbeat dies, you can enjoy the scenic jumping puzzle and get ready for the Sanctified Mind. Oh my goodness. Sanctified Mind. Oh, the horrors of LFG runs stalling here for hours. Fortunately, if you've gotten this far in the trio, you should have no problem here, as in my opinion, it's the easiest encounter in the entire trio. So let's jump right into the loadouts. If you have any Garden armor, make sure to throw on as many enhanced relay defenders as you can. Don't worry about stats, just throw those enhanced mods on. Trinity Ghoul is by far the best weapon for this encounter, and it's not even close. Pair that with a good sniper. In my opinion, Vorpal Succession is perfect. And a solid legendary rocket. Slap on rocket finders and scavengers, and you're golden. It's probably best though if one person sacrifices their Trinity Ghoul and runs Gjallarhorn, because this will substantially increase your DPS. You can also swap your legendary sniper to Izanagi prior to the damage phase, so you can do Izzy rocket swapping. But alternatively, you could just rocket spam. You have plenty ammo throughout this encounter as long as you're using Trinity Ghoul with ammo finders, so there's no real reason that you can't rocket spam. Now, it is slightly lower DPS than Izanagi rocket swapping, I think, but it's easier, and you don't really need to worry about doing any swaps. We 3-faced in our run, and that's because not all of us had a full set of enhanced relay mods, and I also missed like a crap ton of rockets. So make sure to use a tracking rocket for this fight, because not using a tracking rocket is severely limiting your ability to kill in 2 phases. If you don't have the relay mods, you might be nearing a 4-phase. But as long as you have the damage, it shouldn't really matter. The fight doesn't get harder the more phases you're in, so don't worry too much about if you're 3-phasing, 2-phasing, 4-phasing, whatever. You'll get it done. Now finally for subclasses, you really want one Well of Radiance Warlock here. Because Bubble now is irrelevant, so long as you have a Well, your Titan can run whatever they want. Optimally, they'd run for Behemoth with Font of Might, and your Warlock would run Supreme Wellmaker, but it doesn't really matter too much at the end of the day, and our Titan just ran Thunder Crash for the memes. If you have one hunter, they should run Deadfall Tether for the debuff, and any extra hunters can run Nighthawk. If you don't have any hunters, have a Warlock place a Child of the Old Gods Rift on the platform in front of the boss prior to damage, and that will act as a 15% debuff. It's not the 30% debuff that Tether is, but it works. Alright, once that's all set up, you're ready to start. Simply just send one person into a portal at a time, filling up the left relay first before starting right. Inside, make sure to clear ads quick, of course, because you are on a little bit of a timer here. If you want, you can start going into the right side when your third person is in the left side, if you want to speed things up a bit. You'll see we do that in our video. I think Fakes went into the right side when I was still in left side, as I was the third person and he was the first person. So you can do that if you want. There are other more complex strategies, such as the Weave strategy, also known as the Alternating Portal strategy, but because these are more complex and riskier, it's just not necessarily worth it. Once both relays are full, you're ready for damage. You don't need to build any platforms, but you can after a damage phase if you want. During damage, just have your Well of Radiance Warlock try to pre-place their well if they can, so the well is already ready for when the damage phase starts. Figure out who's going in what position in the tether before the damage phase starts, get that tether ready, and start DPS. Make sure you're damaging from the relay if you're running enhanced relay mods. If you're not running any enhanced relay mods, you don't need to damage. You can just damage from the middle of the middle of the arena. But like I said, if you are running enhanced relay mods, make sure you stand next to the relay so you get up to 50% extra damage. After a few phases, hopefully Sanctified Mind dies, and you've completed arguably the second hardest trio in the game, probably behind Last Wish. And if you finished it flawlessly, big props to you. Thank you guys so much for watching. The success on my Trio Vow of the Disciple video was beyond anything, that I imagined, so I was really excited to make another guide. I sent out a poll on YouTube and people wanted to see the Trio Garden of Salvation guide. So I did this, and if it does well, it is a raid that's 3 years old, so I don't expect it to do as well. But if it does, if it does decently at least, I will make another guide. Probably Last Wish, I think, was the second most voted guide, either Last Wish or Deepstone Crypt. These videos take me a little bit longer than my other videos, so if they don't do well, I probably won't make another one. But if this does well, I'm going to make another one, and I hope you guys enjoy that. So stay tuned, don't forget to subscribe, and if this video helped you out in any way, drop a comment, drop a like. But that's all for now. So have a good one.